region.
And parts of Florida still reeling from Hurricane Helene. Now the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, facing a severe staffing shortage. Fewer than 10% of the agency's disaster workers are currently available to respond to Hurricane Milton. This according to the agency's daily operations briefing. With us now, Mitch Rochelle is an economic and policy commentator. Brandon Arnold is the executive vice president of the National Taxpayers Union. Gentlemen, welcome and thanks for coming on. The New York Times putting the staffing shortage into context, writing this. Even in 2017, arguably FEMA's busiest year in the past decade, after Hurricane Harvey flooded Houston, Hurricane Irma plowed through Florida, and Hurricane Maria plunged Puerto Rico into darkness, FEMA's staffing reserves at this point in October were 19%. More than twice the levels they're at now. So, Mitch, we'll start with you. How dire is this situation?
Well, the one thing, Emma, that you need in times like this is manpower. And what FEMA doesn't have is just that. And maybe if they didn't focus the last 4 years on diversity, equity, and inclusion in their hiring practices, they'd have more resources right now. But unfortunately, you got to play the hand you're dealt, and we've got to make sure that the federal government allocates those resources to where they're truly needed.
Yeah, Brandon, perhaps your confidence on this as well, because the other thing you need as far as manpower is trust from the American people, right? Knowing that this federal assistance would be there when you would need it, and this is when you would need it during the hurricane season. You even had this, Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas insisting FEMA has the necessary resources to respond effectively to Hurricane Milton. Watch this.
FEMA is tremendously prepared. This is what we do. This is what they do. And the key here, Rebecca, is also to make sure that the communities who are potentially impacted are prepared as well. And it's not just hurricanes and wildfires, also extreme heat, which certainly some parts of the United States are already experiencing.
All right, so heavily prepared, and this is where the confusion comes in, because it was the same man that warned that FEMA doesn't have enough funding to last through hurricane season. So, Brandon, I go back to trust in the federal government on this. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, the last thing we want to do is add to the stress level, the fear that so many people in Florida are experiencing right now. Unfortunately, we're not getting enough confidence from the federal government, and that is really, really disappointing to hear. What we know is that Congress just provided $20 billion in terms of resources, but we see this enormous staffing shortfall here. I don't care where the staffers come from within the federal government. If that's the Department of Education, the Social Security Administration, what have you, let's provide the manpower that the people of Florida and other affected areas need right now to make sure that we can do for them what they need to be done to provide them that security and stability during one of the most difficult times of their lives, one of the most difficult times they'll ever experience.
It's in the name, emergency management. If you are failing to do that, you have failed as an organization. Hopefully that's not the case. Again, we're waiting to see exactly the anticipated devastation from Hurricane Milton. You've got to hope for these Americans who are going to be impacted by the storm, that they'll be okay and that they get all the resources that they need. Mitch Rochelle, Brandon Arnold, got to leave it there. Gentlemen, thanks so much for coming on.
You bet.
Thank you.
Yeah, so obviously can't forget about